Okay. All right, where are we on to next?
Public comment.
Any public comment? I didn't see any.
I did not see any.
I did get an email. Kirsten Aguilera. You want me to read it for the record?
Sure.
What was the name again, John?
It was Kirsten Aguilera, Aguilera. Aguilera. She had sent me an email on Tuesday, and I'll read it for the record. I am glad that we were able to create. Oh, let's see. Wait a minute. That was my response. She writes, on Monday, June 1st, my husband and I were at Mixville this past weekend. Everyone was behaving and all was great there. I noticed a large sign stating the beach was not to be used. However, it was positioned near the little lifeguard house and facing the back hill. I had no idea what it said until I went out of my way to walk over and read it. People heading to the beach are unable to read the sign the way it's positioned. I would suggest putting it closer to the parking lot on an angle so that it's visible when heading towards the beach. Otherwise, it'll go unseen. On another note, as we are frequent visitors to Mixville for the past 30 years, we have seen the park overrun with out-of-towners with no regard to keeping the park clean. In order to keep the attendance down at the park, I would like to offer a suggestion. As taxpayers that pay for the upkeep of the park, we should not be prevented from using the facilities because out-of-towners are coming in. I would suggest a sign stating for residents only, unless a season pass at a cost of $100 to $200 has been purchased. Police will be taking notice of any cars not registered to Cheshire residents that do not have a purchased sticker adhered to their window. Kirsten. And then I responded back to her saying that we're happy that we were able to create a situation where Mixville was usable for passive recreation this past weekend and week. I'll take a ride to check. However, I believe Public Works had placed a sign at the park entrance, at the guardhouse on the way in to the parking lot, in addition to one near the pavilion and one near the beach, that indicates no beach activities per DEEP guidelines. With regards to the non-resident users of the park, I have a limited history on the subject. I could tell you that everything Mixville Park related is on the minds of the Cheshire Parks and Rec Commission and this department to review at a future date. Thanks for your interest and comments. And then she just said, thank you for responding. If you'd like a little history of Mixville, what's gone there in the past. My husband and I have been going there just about every week for the last 30 years. You may call either one of us at any time. We can tell you how it is to be used or how it is used to be. And when everyone in Cheshire was there with their young children, how it's changed over the years. And she gets into some characterizations that I'm just going to leave it alone. Feel free to call me.
All right. What's
that's it for public comment.
Okay. Paul, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was having trouble, but I want to make sure I can be heard. All right. I didn't have volume before.
Okay. What's next on our agenda?
Parks update. So basically, all 3 basketball courts are completed. They're still wrapped up, waiting for the new guidelines that allows for, that kind of contact to happen. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but it could be soon in this next phase. I'm not sure. The tennis courts have been paved. The contractor is telling me that probably in a week and a half, they'll be out there. Probably by Friday the 12th, they're scheduled to do the 2 layers of acrylic paint and then striping. And then after that, the nets will have to be hung, and then the fencing. So I'm hoping like by the 3rd week of June, the Cheshire Park Tennis Pickleball Complex will be taken care of and will be operational. As far as the Bartlam Park capital improvements, all the equipment's been ordered. One vendor has been out there to do some minor work, but both vendors have the equipment. They're ready to install. We're just waiting for Public Works to finish up with the things that they can with the roads so that they could free up a crew to go do the necessary site work for all that installation to occur. Mark, you have anything else that you wanted to add to any park updates?
No. But we should get to the playground hopefully this week.
Okay. One other thing is that I've been emailing George and Sean. With the governor increasing the outdoor limit from 5 to 25 last Friday at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. There's a whole host of emails that I received for groups that wanted to or thought that they could start, practicing as teams. But in a lot of the news media, they left off the important little clause at the bottom that said, sports that include contact and any shared object like a ball was still prohibitive until the next phase. So I know that there's a CCM meeting along with KERMA and CRPA, which is the Connecticut Recreation Parks Association. There's a call next Tuesday at 1 o'clock that the town managers, park and rec people, commission people are urged to maybe be on it, because they're going to talk about all the safe play guidelines, fields opening, organized sports, pool, beach staff, all that kind of stuff. And maybe Elizabeth wanted to talk a little bit more about that or add anything to it.
I think that they're going to have a lot of guidance coming out at the end of this week, and we're going to kind of have a chance to hash out what the opportunities are. I've been working with CRPA reviewing the sector guidelines that they're going to be releasing, and they do seem like they're still going to be pretty strict regarding which sports are allowed and how they're going to allow practices and signage that's going to be required. It seems like the regulations not that they don't apply to municipalities, but municipalities kind of have their own set of rules. So a lot of this is going to be up to us to decide what we actually want to follow, because it will obviously now become the best practice, but it's different to implement. Like one of the guidelines was that they need to have signage everywhere. And it's going to be hard to put signs on all of the acres of parks that exist. So that's one of the things that isn't really going to work out. And then they're talking about the groups. They're going to be pretty small groups that they're going to allow a maximum of 50 people, including spectators, which will be challenging for youth sport groups because that includes the players. So you've got 50 people allowed at a field, and say you've got 25 people, including the coaches. You're not even going to be allowed to have one parent per player on the field. You're going to run out of room. So it'll be interesting to see what the final guidelines are. I believe they're coming out this Friday, and then it'll be our turn to react to them and see what we want to open. So I think this meeting next week is very timely.
Is there any way to get these guidelines postponed till Mondays? Because when they come out on Friday, the public sees them. I mean, John gets barraged with stuff that I see.
Yeah, it's an interesting tactic.
So I did bring that up because we need to talk about how are we going to, what's the town's position and direction for opening up fields? How deep do we go? Public Works did lose summer help in the budget. So that's going to have some stresses and some impact. Are we going to open up restrooms? I know that Sean has had George research, or maybe Mark, research for professional cleaners to clean our restrooms 1 time a day, 2 times a day, get some portalet figures so that I know either probably early next week we're gonna get together and just see what is going to be our strategy, because I know that I've heard from just about every adult and youth organization within the last week, and they're anticipating being out there. So there could be some happy people, or there could be some dissatisfied residents, and a lot of that is hinging on the guidelines that Elizabeth is talking about for some of them. But for those that it doesn't apply, what are we going to do with our facilities?
I will mention the one bonus is that at least these guidelines are not going to appear to go into effect on Friday when he releases them. They're going to have a set date, which is probably going to be around June 20th. So at least.
Hey, Mark, is there any way?
Sorry, I muted myself, but it looks like it's going to be June 20th.
Is there any way to get some type of temporary fencing around the tennis courts at Cheshire Park? Because when I go by there, I see people rollerblading on it.
Yeah, we can try to get some. I don't know if we have enough to go around it.
Yeah.
Block some of it.
Or maybe even just yellow tape that says, keep out.
Okay.
The new tennis courts you're talking about?
No, yeah. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, with the pickleball courts and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I've gotten calls where people say, hey, they're rollerblading on. I'm like, yeah, okay,
Right. Along those lines, I've talked to John. The National Federation of High School has set out standards too, moving on into scholastic sports, and John and I have talked a little bit about it. And youth sports would come first, as they come along. Of course, the Board of Ed fields are still not open, although people think they are because the town has opened them up. So we're constantly getting kids off of those fields. I'm not sure what the plan is as far as reopening our fields, but I'm sure we'll have to do as the governor opens up things a little bit more.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda.
It is council liaison report.
Peter.
That would be me, huh? John, and feel free to jump in. I thought I'd just give a quick rundown on budget stuff. The budget was approved by the council last Thursday, which was the last possible day we could approve a budget. Just to give you some high-level numbers, the general government increase was just under $72,000, which for all intents and purposes was a flat budget. The education department received an increase of $1.237 million, a 1.69% increase. It was about a 50% cut from what had been requested. The overall increase to the entire budget from last year was $1.867 million, and that is a 1.63% increase. For taxpayers, the mill rate stayed exactly the same at 33.22, which means that there will be a $0 tax increase for Cheshire residents next year, and that was the goal of the council going in. What it means for Park and Rec, and John, this is where you're. Please feel free to jump in. The total salaries number that was requested by the department and approved by Sean was cut by $95,647. Basically, I will tell you that any department that requested increase in staffing had that reduced from their budget. And I believe, John, part of that number is the summer help you talked about. Is that the summer help that you guys have?
So part of that number, I believe,
would that,
and then the other part would be the retirement of Kathy Forenza.
okay.
And, you know, just as a side with that, we were proposing to make the program coordinator full-time. And so basically with her retirement, May 22nd effective, it allowed for us to work to make that program coordinator position full-time, but then lose the clerical support. But with Public Works working swiftly and efficiently over the month of April and part of May, and executing our plan to the winter blitz, what we had talked about, rearranging our administrative offices and making what was the current central office a programming space. This reduction in staff from 4.5 to 4 and making the program coordinator a full-time employee kind of meshes and blends well with that. I mean, with the 4 people that are full-time there, we probably can make it work. We're going to have to make it work. And we're just going to have to kind of keep an eye and see how things go. You know, that's all I can say about that. I'm excited about having, you know, another program position. Hopefully it's not, you know, we're all going to have to kind of take on some other things. And once we get back in the swing of things and everyone's back to full force, you know, we're going to tackle that as a staff. So, but go ahead, Peter.
The non-salaries portion of the budget was cut by 6,394 off of the appropriated amount from the previous year. So the total difference in the Park and Rec department budget for the next fiscal year is $102,041 less than was appropriated the year before. Coinciding with that, recreation revenue was approved at $250,000. That was after cutting $110,000 because of all of the COVID concerns. The only other piece that I was going to bring up was the contribution to the pool fund is going to be at $396,411, and that is a $55,000, $106 increase over what was appropriated for a pool fund last year.
Here, one thing, when I guess John and Sheila approached up the hill with what was going on with the pool and the pool liner, we got the feedback that this was sprung on them, and I don't think that was really fair for Park and Rec. I think we have a good system built in with someone like yourself, and you do an excellent job, but they can't expect you to be in 3 different meetings on the same time, and then we have the COVID, and so I think it was unrealistic for them to say we don't have a system in effect. We have a good system in effect, and we just had extenuating circumstances. But we've been talking about the pool and the pool liner probably since February. So maybe you can sort of pass that on up the hill. But you know, Peter Talbot's only one person and can't be at budget meetings and COVID meetings and all the other stuff.
Well, and John certainly had talked about it on the, you know, with Sean on the council level. It was my recollection that Sheila brought it up at the council level. The comment that you're talking about, Doc, was one individual, and
okay,
you know, let's put it this way: it wasn't widespread, a widespread feeling that
okay,
that this was, you know, came out of nowhere.
Okay, thank you. Because we love you and you do an excellent job, and the system is great. Well, okay, what's next on our agenda?
The Mr. Chairman's report.
I think the one thing that I can say is that our director has done an unbelievable job. He has patience that I know that I don't have, with all the different groups and stuff that we see that barrage him day in and day out. And he does a great job maintaining his patience and also informing everybody. I mean, John, you know everything that comes out of Hartford, you know what it says, and you pass it on in a nice fashion, as you know, we're all involved together. And we get some mad dogs that just keep coming and coming and coming. But John, it's very nice, and hats off to you for the way you handled that. It you know, reflects good on everybody in Park and Rec.
Well, I'm glad you said everybody, because I do have a good team, and two of the members are on this call right now too. So
right. And I had talked to Elizabeth about that earlier when.
Okay.
And stuff. So Stephanie, thank you too. Okay, that's all I have to say.
All right, old business, Chapman Property Master Plan. Unfortunately, that had to take a back seat, and we were just ready to deliver that public meeting so that we can get public feedback on 3 of those plans, and then have Weston Sampson go back and create the final master plan and then deliver that to the town council for the council's review and acceptance. You know, that basically has been put on hold until such time that I guess that we are allowed to have public gatherings, or we could find a way that we can be, you know, efficient and get all that information and that feedback back. As far as the capital budget, I think, Peter, you guys took a couple weeks off before we start digging into that, or is that further down the road?
The public hearing for the capital budget is going to be Tuesday before the regular June council meeting. I have not seen a schedule from Budget Chairman Barowie on what the schedule looks like, but we do plan on doing that in June. So you'll, I'm sure, get an invitation to come present.
Sure. Fiscal year 1920 budget, or the next budget, we talked about that already. Peter gave us the report on that. Now we're on to number 10, new business, Mixville Park. I just wanted to kind of bring that up, and you know, there's a lot of moving parts. It's very fluid. You know, there was a lot of local comments about initially closing the park. A lot of that was just as information kept changing and being able to control. We haven't sold any passes for the year because, you know, we had left the office, and typically we don't start selling them until April or May anyway, or the end of March. We haven't hired anybody for guards. So it kind of goes back to last fall when I said that we kind of need to talk as a group and kind of create a Mixville Park master plan. And, you know, we have some aging structures there. We have this whole past management system that, you know, I'm not comfortable with having, you know, kids there with cash. You have a lot of comment on the community forum and other emails of this resident versus non-resident. Do we even tackle that? Is it even legal to do there? Is that something that could happen if you wanted it to? How does that affect the revenue for pavilion rentals? Seeing as though majority of them, I believe, are non-resident rentals. We don't charge a different fee for non-residents. It's the same as residents for the pavilion rentals. So there's just a lot of things. You know, the guardhouse. Are we ever going to put guards back on the beach? We use that guardhouse for storage. We need some more signage if we're not going to have guards. We have the boathouse that acts as storage. And Elizabeth, at some point, you could also ring in too on your feelings because of the history, and then also the Mixville camp You know, we have that building behind the large pavilion that's in the capital improvement plan that really for us to continue the future of our adventure Mixville summer camp, we really need a place for, you know, an area of refuge for inclement weather, for flash storms. You know, it's tough to just order up a bus and put them on the bus and take them to the youth center. And, you know, the youth center is not really climate controlled. Not that this one probably would not be either, but, you know, just a lot of different things to talk about at that park. And then, you know, currently, Public Works did a really nice job mobilizing, and we limited the capacity to the parking lot so that it can be controlled, so we don't have the mass crowd and parking all over the place. And it seemed to work over the holiday weekend, which was surprising to me, and I'm glad that there wasn't, you know, any issues that necessitated the police and whatnot. But it's only going to get worse as the summer and the weather gets hotter and better, and people looking for, you know, a place to go swimming and so forth. So I don't know if anybody wants to chime in or talk about it, or do we want to kind of table it, have a special meeting on its own at another time? You know, I'll leave it up to you guys.
Elizabeth, are you
Did
going
you see
to
it over
weigh
the
in
weekend?
on anything?
Yeah, it needs work. It needed work before COVID even happened. We were researching options that we were going to request in the budget for a different type of structure for the gate attendant, because it's a pretty old, crooked building that every year we wonder if there's still going to be a floor there because it's even sinking into the ground. So the gatehouse itself is not a great place. And now with the situation of reduced parking and reduced access, those gate attendants don't take a physical beating, but they get not verbally attacked, but they deal with a lot out there. And they're young kids, high school and college age. We don't have even middle-aged adults there. So they're young adults out there at the gate, and they're by themselves. So it's a challenge to only have one person out there, and they take some verbal abuse. And the police is responsive. The police is always responsive when they're called, but a lot of times they just kind of let what happens happen because they're by themselves, and that's what they need to do to keep themselves safe and be a good, positive representative. Kind of one of those customer is always right aspects. So it's challenging for them to be out there alone. Like John said, having a lot of money out there, they would have to leave the gatehouse unattended, locked up, and actually bring the money to a different secure location, because sometimes they would have such a high volume of cash on hand, which is a different unsafe situation. And now with COVID, it just doesn't feel right to put them out there with the uncertainty of whether or not there will be bathrooms, and wondering what kind of verbal attacks there will be because people are mad that we've reached capacity. So it seems unfair to put somebody in that situation when on the best of days, people are unhappy when the park is full and we have a lot of capacity. So that's as far as the gatehouse. And then up by the camp, again, it's on the future needs list. We do need to have some sort of building back out there. The storage doesn't work. We have supplies that we just can't use because we can't get to. And there is no area of refuge. And last year we talked to Jack Kasner, and as far as emergency operations go, the best option was for the campers to stay huddled under the center of the pavilion. So granted, there are no walls, but having everybody get onto a bus isn't really much safer because anything could happen on the road in one of those freak storms. So it would be good to have some sort of area of refuge. The boathouse is currently used for boats that we use at camp, and there's some opportunities there as well. If we chose to make it a little bit more user-friendly, we could potentially, if we want to rehab the park, have boat rentals and let people go canoeing or kayaking out of there if we want to start staffing with lifeguards again. The beach, the guardhouse right now has some of the camp supplies that we haven't been able to use since the building came down, like the ping pong tables, the foosball, the air hockey, all those fun things that were great on rainy days out at camp, or even just on the really hot days, because the kids want to have a more sedentary activity because it's just too hot to be running around in the fields and out in the sun. So they would stay in the shade and they would have other fun sort of clubhouse type activities. So those are not something that can be stored in a storage unit. So those are just housed in the guard shack right now, for lack of a better place, because they were an investment that we didn't want to get rid of. So that's just kind of where some things are right now. And a lot of it is physical upgrades. Then there's sand that needs to get put into the beach. The volleyball court is not a sand volleyball court or a grass court, it's clay. So I think some investing needs to be done in Mixville to make it the best park that it can be. But probably the first priority is, what do we want to do with staff at all and managing the park just to get through this summer is probably where we want to start, I guess. That's my 2 cents, or maybe 20 cents at this point.
Well, so it seems like this is a recurring theme year after year, and we've done so much with so little for so long. I think we can do everything with nothing from now on.
Would it make sense? Would it make sense, Pat, for us to maybe go out there on a field trip of the commission to kind of just physically see what's needed out there, and we can kind of like make a on-site checklist for things that need to be done? I mean, I don't know, John, do you think that would work?
I don't think we can do it as a commission because then it has to be a meeting and it has to be public notice. I think we went through that before, so we can go out individually. But I think the last time we were going to do that, that's what we were told.
You can, Pat, you can go out as a group unless it constitutes a quorum. Then it would have to be it would have to be noticed. So as long as you're, three or less going out, you're okay to do it.
So Pat, would it be really terrible just to have a noticed special meeting? I think that, everyone's ideas, everyone has some feelings and ideas, and I just think
it, have a problem with
instead
that.
of being
I'm sorry. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I guess the only issue is how tough is that to arrange? In other words, from notification, what's the official way we notify people?
Why don't we just have one of our regular scheduled meetings at Mixville and we can walk the park while we're all there?
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, the governor's guidelines are going to change probably. I know we're closed for pavilion rentals through the end of June. So part of my meeting with George and Sean is to determine, are we going to, as a town, allow to have rentals July and August as that number for social gathering outside increases. But certainly we could wait and do that and do the July meeting there, as Mike suggested. We could do that.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
June 20th is the start of phase 2 of Connecticut's reopening. So.
And I just double checked the date on the town's expansion of services plan, and it's being amended, but as it stands, the town council, board, commission, and committee meetings will be held virtually at least until June 30, 2020. So that's what we currently have in the town's expansion plan for as we get back to normal.
And then the governor just came out with today allowing in-person graduations starting July 6th.
Yeah.
How many people is that? I mean, that could be, 500-600.
It's a limit of 150 actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a limit.
There is a number limit on it too.
Oh.
Yeah. It sounded better than it was, John. You got too excited.
Elizabeth, is that number that you're saying, because I know it's brand new, does that include the graduates also, the 150?
I listened to the governor and I honestly couldn't 100% understand it, but it seemed like it was, but then they were talking about, there was a small town in the valley that they had speaking, and they were really excited to be having their graduation in person.
Derby is going to be able to do it because
yes.
They only have 75 seniors.
Thank you. That was the numbers I was looking for. So I believe they do count as part of.
One parent for each student.
Yeah.
And
Farmington has announced that, and I don't think they're as large as we are, right, Steve? Farmington
A little bit
is,
smaller.
yeah. If they're going to do a drive-through graduation, so that as the names are called, the kids will drive up, the cars will be staged, and they'll drive up and receive their diplomas that way.
Wow.
So we want to have our July meeting then at Mixville?
Yeah, I think that'll be helpful. Then we
Sure.
could kind of go over each piece, create a punch list, and kind of go from there.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
No problem.
Next up, new business. Karen had proposed this 2 months ago or last month, and we decided to table it because she wasn't at the meeting, so that we could kind of get the gist of what she was trying to do here. Did anybody want to take a stab, or do you want to, since she's not here today, do you want to put it off again?
Say we table it unless anybody has some strong desires to.
What's she asking?
It's on the agenda. It says to begin developing the program to utilize the high school students' community hours to help Park and Rec. And then she has
Oh, yeah.
what tasks can be allowed to do, who would keep track, identify a school liaison, who can supervise these tasks. I don't know if anybody has any comments. I don't know if there's something that already exists.
I will say that we do currently get a lot of volunteers from the high school. Most of them are during our summer camp, which we won't have this year, through our CIT program, but we get probably an average of about 50 kids who go through the CIT program over the summer. We also, throughout the year, have some volunteers with our volleyball program, our basketball program. On occasion, we've had kids volunteer with our preschool cooking classes through Barbara Costello. So anytime we're approached by a student, we can usually find a volunteer project for them, and their supervisor is just whoever is the most appropriate. Barbara Costello, through the therapeutic program, also has quite a few volunteers with peer mentors for her programs. She runs a really nice program called the Afternoon Club, the TR Afternoon Club. And on half days when there's early dismissals, she has the kids for 3 hours come down from the high school, and it's a mix of typical and special needs students. So there are volunteers in that aspect as well. So we do have something. I don't know if she's looking for something more robust, but pretty much if a kid comes to us with a desire to volunteer, usually we can find something for them.
So I think she'd have to be here to expound on that or expand on it.
Okay. Next up, my report. I emailed one late this afternoon. Sorry about that. Just trying to catch up on a lot of stuff. If you had a chance to print it out, or you could bring it up, any of the new information is in red, bold, and underlined. So I'll just take it from the top. The first one, community pool. Today, Sheila and I participated on a call with Sue Lonsek from Chesprocott and Maura Esposito to go through Sheila's reopening plan that she worked with Elizabeth to get the pool ready. The liner, I think, is at about 60% right now being installed. But they went through all the different protocols that would need to get done in order to have the pool be open to the public. Maura Esposito is highly recommending that if the pool opens up at some point, the earliest, I guess, would be phase 2 if it's physically ready. But once it is ready to go and it meets the guidelines of the governor as far as being able to operate, she put a number at 25. And Sheila is looking to open up the pool in 2-hour increments where people would make a reservation. So I think that she was able to calculate that she can get 150 bathers a day with the pool being open, and just kind of gauge and see how that goes. Swimming for 2 hours and then leaving an hour in between to disinfect and sanitize restrooms, bathrooms, the pool deck, and any of those common touch points. So that's still a work in progress. We also need to, at some point, and I have a message into Sean to discuss this about bringing back the furloughed head guard and the furloughed pool coordinator so that we could have some time to get them back on the job and complete some of the other tasks that they were involved in before the pool was closed and before they were furloughed. The other thing was, I know that we're going to, we had a Tracy Kozlowski transferred and went to the senior center. So there's a position open at the front desk attendant. But I know that we're going to kind of defer that for a little bit, budgetary wise. And we need to hire the pool facility technician, which we got as far as selecting the third candidate after the first two refused for personal reasons or other job offer. He was able to get through and pass successfully his physical. So now it's just some minor details so that we can get him on board and get acclimated to the pool. Because Sheila's kind of doing everything like a one-man band right now. So that takes care of the pool unless anybody has any questions.
What's going to happen for pool membership if you can come 2 hours a day? What's our fee? What's going to happen?
Good question, and we talked about it today. And we have weekly staff meetings, so we're going to be discussing it tomorrow as an open group, just to kind of brainstorm and get a good feeling. Because there's going to be some of those people that will be okay with it, and some of those people that will be not okay with it because they're going to want something back, or it's not fair, or whatever. So whether it's a fee structure, you know, we're going to wait till tomorrow to discuss that.
Okay.
Good question.
With the pool liner, you said 60% done. So if the governor opens it up, will the pool be ready on the 20th?
It may be ready, but you know, a lot of this is we still have to discuss with Sean and have all these other pieces put into place with the personnel. You know, right now they're still furloughed. There's still a lot of stuff that has to get done. I know it's Sheila's hope. I know it's the pool vendors' hope to get through there. They've been working through the weekends. They worked through the holiday weekend. They worked the weekend before. I was there the other day. I think they're getting ready to, they did all the prep work. Some of the prep work took a lot longer than anticipated because of the pool's poor construction, I guess, or some other unknown things. And to secure and to get a proper installation of this liner, there were things that had to get done. So that kind of extended and pushed out the time a little bit. So there's a lot of hustling that has to get done in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks.
Yep. Number 3, the Chapman update. I already kind of talked about that, where we are with Weston and Sampson. They do call monthly, and I talked to Ryan Chmielewski just to kind of touch base and see where we are. He's had many other projects be put on the shelf or just shuttered altogether. So we just kind of talk every once in a while just to see what's happening. Also, just to go back on the pool, I know I did tell the council at that council meeting that at the end that I was going to hire a third-party consultant so that we can get an inventory and do a full facility audit assessment so that we could plan properly capital projects and kind of get a feeling of, you have this aging pool now, where are we with the mechanicals, with the pool, with the plumbing and everything else. So the timing was impeccable. I did reach out to Sean. I hired Western and Sampson with his approval and project money that Jim Jascott and Sean approved. They were on site last Tuesday when the liner was totally taken out of the pool. So as part of their assessment, they were able to see the concrete basin of the pool. and perform void tests. So that's going to be part of their overall assessment. Once the pool is up and running and with water and operational, they will come back with their pool planners, their engineers, and create a total assessment so that we'll have something. We might even have it as soon as, before the summer while we're going through the capital plan. So I know that capital plans have already been submitted, but maybe there's some timing here or not, or maybe there's nothing that needs to be put in it. But to any event, we'll have this document going forward. So just wanted to report that. Cheshire Park, we talked about the courts. We talked about the tennis courts. Hopefully by the third week of June, that will be all wrapped up. Mixville, number 7. We spent some time on that already. Number 8, we talked about that in the park update with the Bartlam Playground, and Mark offered that they're going to try to get in there soon to get the site work done. Number 9, we did cancel the concerts this summer. I don't know if you saw in the Record Journal today that Southington just canceled their Apple Harvest Fest too. Number 10 was the Winter Blitz at the Youth Center. Keith and Steve did an awesome job. We created a handicap accessible window on the administrative side, repainted, added some carpet. They did a lot of good stuff, and I'm happy about that, to see that occur and get all done before we were coming back. We talked about number 11, basketball, tennis courts. Number 12, I think I told you the last meeting, the CYB is going to give up the reins to the Bartlam concession stand. I just haven't been able to connect and get a letter from them on letterhead stating such from their board, but that should be coming at some point. Field distribution meetings. This is important because typically I would have, for the fall sports, I would be meeting at the end of June, early July. So there's still a lot of information that has to be obtained and gathered, so we know what direction we're going to be headed with fall sports and what's going to be allowed and what's not going to be. So it's kind of wait and see before I schedule that meeting. The Park and Rec ordinances. At some point, I think I sent to you the last meeting or the meeting before, my recommendations on the ordinances. The last time they were revised were 1995. So some language is obsolete. Some language definitely needs to be changed. So I don't know when you want to take a crack at that and take a look at it. I mean, that's something that doesn't have to be done right away, but at some point it should be handled the next couple of months so that we can bring it to the count. I think the council does have an ordinance committee, Peter.
That's what I was going to say. I wonder, John, if, depending on the involvement wanted by this group, if it would be best just to get it on the ordinance review, and then any commission members that wanted to attend those could attend and provide input. Or if you guys want to put something cohesive together as a recommendation, forward it on to ordinance review and go from there.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe we could do that, Pat.
Okay. I can sit down with you.
Okay. Or anybody else that has some comments. Yeah. I mean, you all should have my comments. If you need it, send me an email and I'll send it back out. And if you want to review it and there's things that you like or dislike or are okay with, then maybe you could send it back to me, and then Pat, we could formalize a final document, and then, as Peter suggested, send it to the chair of that committee.
Who is that, Peter?
Ordinance review is, I think, Veliber. I think it's me, Veliber, and Walsh.
Okay. Another hat you wear.
And a lot of
Your shoulders must be sore.
Number 20, Elizabeth had done a survey. We just haven't had a chance for the youth basketball program. We just haven't had time to analyze the data and talk about it, put it together, if that's correct.
That's correct. And then also we don't know what's going to be coming down the road because there are still some unknowns left from COVID and what's going to be allowed as far as school use and what's going to be appropriate return to play for sports as well.
Number 21, we talked already about Kathy Ferenz's retirement, May 22nd, and how that all kind of worked out nice and neat for us with the program coordinator. 22, we talked about the pool and the Chesbrook call today. Let's see, number 23. All hinges on the state of Connecticut and the governor and his information that hopefully he'll be coming out with on Friday. And then my meeting with Sean and George or even Mark to discuss how we're going to handle activities moving forward for this summer. Summer camps have been canceled. The dog park and tennis courts, are now open to the public. Playgrounds and basketball courts are not. I don't know if those are going to be part of this June 20th phase. Elizabeth, I don't know if you know if that's no, probably not. She's saying no.
No, they are specifically not touching playgrounds.
Are the bases still on the diamonds?
I believe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they have been, especially at Cheshire Park.
I saw kids playing baseball at Bartland Park a couple days ago, over the weekend.
Were the base paths or the bases out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to yank them in to discourage.
Well, it's sort of inviting if you leave them out.
All right. Is that something that you guys could take care of, Mark?
Yep, we'll take care of it.
Number 26, I talked about hiring Weston and Sampson to do the pool audit. 27, we do have an intern from Southern. He's a Bristol resident. He's going to fit in very nicely. I'm actually going to give him a couple of projects that I kind of kicked off last year. Was that disc golf course at Mixville Park and then the low ropes adventure course at Mixville. There's a lot of things that I needed to get to as far as planning and second and third meetings with both prospective vendors and plans that we had to get to Suzanne Simone on maybe some potential wetland issues for the adventure course. So a really good project for him to get into facility management and navigate some of the regulatory boards. So good experience for him. And he could help me get some other things done that I don't have time to get to all the time. We talked about the Bartland Playground, capital budget. Peter just talked about briefly. I'm working on a public gathering permit with the other town departments, a public gathering process. So to make sure that, we have public safety in mind, public works, whether there's the need for dumpsters or additional portalets or a parks maintainer, those types of more the larger events that we have all those bases covered so that we have a fun, safe event. And then the last but not least, we had gotten one call on the parking passes for Cheshire High School. We were working back and forth with the administration at the high school to kind of come up with a fair refund for all the student parking that didn't happen from March until now. So that was, I guess, determined today. The high school sent out a letter out Friday to all the students on what they can expect based on what they paid and when they pulled out their pass. And that's it. I'm all set, Pat.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Okay, anybody want to make a motion? No
I'll make a
motion?
motion. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is my quickest meeting. Come on, since I've been here.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Stay safe, everybody.